Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, or how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, or how to go about finding an investor if you're ready for that aspect. Bottom line is we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important aspects of this journey to establishing and growing your brand. Tracy and I have been doing this a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we've done a few good things, so we're here to help you. Please follow our podcast on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review, and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. Tracy?
Bruce and I have been involved in consumer packaged goods commercial operations roles for over 30 years. We define commercial operation functions relating to sales, marketing, trade marketing, broker and distributor management, agency selection and management, new product development, brand acquisition and divestitures, and customer management. We also invite on our episodes friends and former colleagues from all aspects of the Road to Retail process to come on the show and offer their opinions and experience. Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road, 2 Retail.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Road to Retail. And this is our latest episode where we interview friends and colleagues in the industry. Good to see you, Bruce. Welcome. Tell our audience.
Tracy, always good to see you. I am fine, my friend. I am fine and looking forward to today's show.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who we have today.
Well, today we welcome Neil Foster to the show. Neil is the CEO of Agency Habitat, a very interesting advertising organization located down in Texas. Neil, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good, guys. I appreciate you having me on the show.
No, thank you for your time. So before we jump into what you're doing currently, why don't you give the group a little background on, who you are and what's your journey been that led you to founding your own agency?
So I started in the advertising business right out of college as a copywriter. So really more on the content development side and creative campaign side of the ad agency business. So from there, I always joke around and said, well, I must not have been very good because I just kept getting promoted to different things than the things I was actually hired to do. But in a nutshell, I moved into creative director position where I really got more time with clients, really talking about more strategy as it relates to different consumer brands. And then eventually I became a partner. So I became a partner in 1989. And then eventually the CEO of the company once one of the founding partners retired. And so here I am. And a lot of the brands that I've worked on, CPG brands, have been in the health and beauty side and the food and beverage side of the business, as well as personal electronics.
Well, that's great. So Neil, why don't you tell us a little bit now specifically about what Agency Habitat does and touch on how you guys help your brands. And we'll talk about the small emerging brands as the show goes on here this morning. But in general, what does Agency Habitat do to help your clients, solidify and grow their business?
Yeah, so Agency Habitat, is really what I consider kind of a hybrid agency. It's a unique business model that we kind of created about 5 years ago. So the agency in its original form as a traditional agency has been around for 50 years, providing services, creative services, campaign services, that you get from traditional agencies, web development, media buying services, all of those things. But what I was seeing kind of in the marketplace is there was going to be a big demand of something that we couldn't kind of create with the traditional business model. And what that was was content. And with everything going more digital and more social content that's needed, overall, I mean, the biggest thing is you need content, you need it in volume. And with a traditional agency, you basically, the way you produced content typically was you came up with all the ideas, but then you hired a production company, and a production company actually rented out space for studio space, rent equipment, get all the folks together to do production work. And then what they would do, they would produce some material, edit the material, send it to the mark it up, send it to the ad agency. The ad agency would mark it up and then send it on to the client. So, as you can see, that gets really expensive quick. So, so the ability to produce content was what we were really trying to do, and produce it at scale at a cost that wasn't going to break the client's budget. So what we did was we took a traditional ad agency with the services provided and meshed that. We bought a building. We built out state-of-the-art studios with equipment. We hired in production staff to actually be that can produce the work. They actually edit all of those types of things under one roof. So what that does is that gives us ability to go from concept, from ideas, all the way to fully producing those assets for our clients. So that's kind of we're unique, business model that really, and after we kind of created it, and of course, we were doing that generally speaking for a lot of different clients in different industries. But we really kind of had all of the pieces that you really need for D2C emerging brands. So that's one of the things that, again, a lot of D2C brands have to build these services internally within the organization. So they have all these fixed costs but obviously there's not groups out there like us, but we have the ability to be able to work with a lot of D2C brands because of the services we provide, and allows them not to have to build it within the organization, have those fixed costs. They can outsource that to a group like ours.
Yeah, rattling through those costs, my wallet started quivering back from my brand management days when you'd get those all the bills from shooting a couple of 30-second commercials, and it comes out basically on a per minute basis costing slightly more than a Star Wars production. So I think that you guys seeing that opportunity in the market to kind of bring things all in house, and especially with the advances in technology and things that are simple like iPhones that can shoot good pictures. I'm sure that there's still some things that need the entire three-ring circus, but probably fewer and fewer every day. Tracy, let's dig in on the small brands.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to say is I love the fact that it sounds to you like you're just one-stop shopping. Like you don't have to outsource these 10 things to really develop some really cool content and some technology. So I love that. So let's jump into our small emerging brand audience. So talk to us a little bit about what counsel you would give a small emerging brand. Are they ready to really become a direct to consumer brand? So what do they need to think about? Is there, things like pricing, supply chain, can they actually make the product? Do they have a good, third-party logistics company? So maybe just talk to us a little bit about a couple of those things.
Now, I think those are really good points. I mean, just that you made, Tracy, just on some of the considerations that you need to look at. But really, I think it's what you how you need to define yourself and what. I know that a long time, in Bruce, just being brand management sides, I mean, your strategy always isn't the same the whole course of a brand. I mean, you have to pivot sometimes, and what you think is going to happen might not happen, or there might be other opportunities to cause you to do that. But I think the biggest thing is you have to, if you want to be a D2C brand, you kind of have to commit to being one, and in doing that, it really, you're going to have patience. I mean, again, you're kind of starting from scratch. You need to make sure that, you do have inventory, your supply chain's good. You get a 3PL service that you can trust. I mean, I've talked to so many different companies that, again, they go through 2 or 3 3PL services because it's just like they're not fulfilling that experience and stuff to the consumer that the company wants. So those are things. And what we typically recommend, even in a DC launch, you will give a soft launch period of at least 6 months. So I think the expectations of folks that want to be D2C brands is you're going to have to be patient, and you're going to have to be well capitalized, because you're not going to come out of the gate. You're not going to start hitting these big sales numbers. It takes time to build. You have to have reviews on your products. I mean, people aren't going to trust to buy from your website if you got one review of your product, And so how do you do that? How do you create reviews and how do, legitimate ones? You can't, it's not the days anymore that you go out and buy reviews. I mean, you can do that through some services, but they have to be really legitimate reviews that people are reviewing your product and stuff, that not to get really blacklisted online for a D2C brand. So those are considerations. Building you're starting out, you got to, build an organic social media following. I mean, that can't happen overnight. And people look at those things to see, hey, am I comfortable with this brand? Is it legit? Do people buy this brand? Do they follow this brand? If they don't, they're just going to be more apprehensive to be able to purchase off your website.
Yeah.
So those are interesting points, especially, Neil, the counsel about a soft launch for 6 months, because all entrepreneurs, and whether you're running, Pepsi or Bruce's awesome new brand, I mean, everyone's always in a hurry, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the old saying, there's never time to do it right, but always time to do it twice. You just have to fight the human nature. So let's talk about some of the changes and evolutions you've seen in your seat and the clients that are coming through your agency with regard to what changes are happening in the marketplace that make a direct-to-consumer brand successful. I mean, it's a fluid market, like all markets are. There's changes all the time, but what do you see right now?
Well, I think in the last, couple of years, there's been some dramatic changes, just that really, it's in the technology, and it's on the plugin side of things with Shopify. There's tons of new plugins. There's a lot of apps that are available that make it easier to build out affiliate programs, with customers. You don't have to have as many people to do, certain things. And I think that optimization brings opportunity, and I think it's exciting. I think it's, we all hear the stories of the guy that started a company in their garage, and then it grew into, $1 billion company. And you always hear that, but then you don't hear you also don't hear what went on from that, then the struggles and the roadblocks that went along with that to get to that point where, you go from startup to success. And I think that now there's a lot of options to start your brand, and a lot of and it's exciting. I think it's exciting for emerging brands, boutique brands that can come into the market, can really kind of take market share from larger brands. But I think there's so much that has to be thought through, and so much that you have to look at with your product. Is it right for D2C? Is it at the right price point? I mean, someone, if you're, if you're trying to not be an Amazon product, but you're a product that's under $20, good luck. I mean, no one's going to pay the shipping off your D2C site.
Right.
People be more comfortable going to Amazon and purchasing multiple products and stuff. And they trust Amazon, and for, individual type products at those price points and stuff, that you're just never going to be able to get them to buy off your website or purchase, or compete with Amazon on that end. So you just got to consider a lot of those things. And I think whether or not what direction you want to go, and price point has a lot to do with that, because there is a lot of great stuff that's available, with a cost, with the software and the plugins that are coming out, and the tracking software, everything is just getting better and more competitive. There's always something new that's coming out, that's a new app or a new plugin that, allows you to optimize and do things better.
So before we move on, Neil, you made a really interesting point there about price point. What's kind of the price point for a consumer packaged goods CPG product that you think is kind of the sweet spot where it's like, hey, Bruce, if you're going to sell something for $11, good luck. I mean,
What I
is it
always say that, what I try to put in it is like more than the price point of it is that is what you're selling. Do you have something that's giftable? And what I mean by that is that, is it something that, I mean, again, if you're selling a bottle of detergent, off of your website, and that's what your strategy is, that's not a very giftable item, but if it's something that actually, you can package some things together, multiple products, different things that make it a little bit more giftable. I think that's really more of a reality of where you're going to be and have potential to sell, direct to consumer. Because if you do have just individual products and they're, again, people just from a trust standpoint, the shipping costs, that type of thing, are less likely to make that purchase there. So you're going to be competing with Amazon, but where area that you can is like you might maybe have a hybrid business where part of your business is Amazon. You're going to have to be in Amazon these days really to create trial at a minimum. But then your higher price point items that you have that could be something that's more what I consider giftable for either yourself or someone else. And those are things that you can do and run promotions and different things to try to really sell off your D2C. You can do, if someone really believes in your brand and it's a product that's used on an ongoing basis, you can provide, different, promotions and subscriptions and things like that to really discount it. And there are opportunities, I think, I run into these sometimes where it's kind of like, I'm going to use something on a regular basis, but I always forget to go buy it, but it's something simple. But, if you got a good subscription model that you're providing and that you have with your D2C website, then that might be something really to kind of move some of those customers over to you and not to shop and buy your product in Amazon. So I
no,
think it's
the giftable part, Neil, is really interesting. Although you just ruined my Christmas present for Tracy. It was Christmas tree scented Tide Pods, but you said detergent is not good. So, all right, Tracy, back to
sorry,
you.
Tracy.
Absolutely. So Neil, talk to us about your recommended tactics on how a brand builds, awareness and trial when they're just starting out. Talk to us about,
Good
social
question.
media and
Yeah.
influencers and all that stuff. And tie in a little bit too. I wanted to go back to one thing you said also is there's all these new plugins and new technology. How does a new brand sift through all of that? Because every day I see
Great point.
there's new things. So, are you the squirrel that goes, oh, new thing? Or do you really stay, so maybe intertwine that with the tactics as well, because there's just so much now to choose from.
Yeah, there is, and there's always going to be something that's coming out that's better and
New and shiny, I call it.
shiny and that kind of thing. And and they always seem like subscriptions seem good. Well, wow, it's not too expensive because it's going to be only this monthly and all of that. But again, those costs do stack up for emerging brands when you're launching. You got
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
5 or 6 different plugins and you get 5 or 6 different apps that you're using and that kind of thing. You really have to kind of watch and see what you really need, because it might be something that even in the early stage that you don't have to have, it's something that might be nice, but you really don't need it yet. And you have to really kind of make some of those decisions, like what is really necessary at this point in my business. And but the things that you really have to do, to really kind of what I would recommend getting a brand and kicking off a brand, you're starting kind of with nothing. I mean, you don't have any reviews, so you're really trying to get reviews through a review service. Like a Bizarre Voice is one of the companies that can do that for you. It's not cheap, but it is putting products in real people's hands, and they are reviewing it, and those reviews can be translated over into your website, as well as any e-commerce retailer other than Amazon. So those things can be translated over, and that's good. You got to have some reviews. even with Amazon, you've got the Vine program, which gives you like 30 reviews that they send that are Amazon customers to give you reviews. Now, Amazon loves this because they want to see, it's a way for them to see if they really want to support your brand or not.
Right.
So obviously they want to see what kind of star rating you're going to have before they're going to really put anything behind their AI to really help move your product along. So, in a rule of thumb on Amazon, you need to be over, like say 4 stars. 4.2 is really ideal or higher. But you really need that. In the beginning with nothing out there. I mean, you have to advertise, and you got to have a budget to advertise, depending on who your target audience is. I mean, there's through different social media platforms, or there could be programmatic, whatever awareness, top of the funnel, top step, bottom of the funnel. It all depends on who you're targeting, and but you have to spend ad dollars, and because some of the other things that are going to really move your brand are going to take time. And a big believer of affiliate ambassador programs. Those have to be custom done. It's not like a one way to do it for each product you have, and how to structure those things. So that takes thought, and just building those out. It'll take about 4 months to get it rolling to where you can actually start, with your affiliate programs, and whether you're getting product out to them, or you're doing discount codes so they can sell it to their followers, or attempt to sell it to their followers. So if you might need content, you're going to need constant content. You want it from some of your customers, ambassador programs. You got to pay those. You got to pay for content. You got to build and structure the programs to be able to do that. Those are things that are really going to build your brand, but it's going to take time. And in the beginning, you got to spend money on media until your program starts building, your affiliate program starts building, and all that. How are you going to how's anybody going to see your product? You got to advertise. And so, and being able to do that, and try to build follower bases, and push out organic content on an ongoing basis is, how you're going to put stuff out there that people might be interested in, and trying to build a brand that people engage with. And again, it's not like you can just, come right out of the gate and expect this big uptick in sales. It's going to take some time, but again, those are the main things that obviously that I would recommend just in the beginning.
How many brands or people, CEOs, founders do you run into where they have really unrealistic expectations? You've said a couple of times it takes time, and 4 months and things like that. So, because if you looked on social media, you see all this glamour of, oh, I right out of the gate and I was doing, $20,000 a month, and then 30, and you never know what's real or what's been sensationalized. So how many people come to your door and go, oh, I think I'm going to get right out of the gate and I'm going to be a millionaire in the next 6 months?
Well, anybody that's not like Bruce, who has years of brand management experience, that, talk about anybody that's been in marketing for a long time, we're all a little bit skeptical and jaded, right? Because we know that it is a journey. And you do run into a lot of cases where I think there is an expectation that, like I said, that might not be realistic. I always try to be very straight up. I never overpromise anything to anybody as a potential client, just so we manage expectations there. But a lot of times it might not be the CEO, but the stakeholders. It's
The investors.
Investors. They're wanting growth, and they want it fast, and believe me, I mean, the amount of budget, if you're well capitalized, and the more money you can spend in media, the faster you're going to grow. And I think that's where there's a misconception. It's like, consumer advertising was, with traditional media, was always perceived, if you're not going to spend $20 million, you just can't do it, right? I mean, you're just not, and then of course with D2C and now and all of that, you just think it was, well, anybody can start their own company and have a shot at it. But you just have to be realistic. If you are well capitalized, I mean, it comes down to the money and amount of money you can spend in media, especially in the beginning. And because again, there's no other way that people are going to see your product. The other things you're trying to do, build your organic social, build your affiliate programs, ambassador programs, those take time. and it's just not, you're not going to see a return on that for for quite some time. So you got to be prepared to have some money coming out of the gate and allocate it to some form of advertising.
So one other thing here to Tracy's question, Neil, we did an episode, oh gosh, probably about 6 weeks ago with a woman who helps brands identify, hire, and manage influencers. Can you talk to the group here a little bit about your perspective? How do you find them? How do you manage them? How do you even try to control them? How are they compensated? And not like super famous people, but
Right.
these people,
Like you that have a following.
the people, kind of normal people. You can't go out and hire some famous Hollywood star or athlete. That's not how most people roll. And a lot of people, while I might aspire to play basketball like LeBron, I'm not. But I'm not sure I'm going to buy a jacket just because he wears it. But if, a guy my size, my age wears something, I might go, oh, that looks kind of good. Won't look as good on me, but what the hell?
Yeah, I think everybody was hearing the stories of you get somebody that's famous and they like your product or repost a post of yours, and all of a sudden sales go through the roof. And what happened, there's a lot of these influencers that kind of created these big following bases during COVID, and TikTok and things like that. They're folks that aren't famous people, but they're, I guess, famous to their followers on their social platforms. So the biggest thing is that there's a lot less, when everybody knows they're repping brands, everybody knows they're getting paid or compensated. So the engagement is really down. So you can't really expect to get a lot of these conversions off some of your influencers. It's really more awareness based and more top of the funnel than bottom of the funnel type marketing with them these days. So because again, it's kind of like, okay, well, okay, I see the brand. I'm not really thinking that much. This person's endorsing it. Doesn't mean I'm going to go out right now and just purchase it, right? Just because like you said, Bruce, whether or not you like the jacket that they're wearing and repping. So I think it's really, it's kind of a numbers game. I mean, what you do have to look is really the nano and micro influencers these days. They might have 20,000 followers, 10,000 followers, but you got to look at their engagement. I mean, if they do have smaller groups like that, they typically do have a little better engagement where the people who follow them, are listening to them a little bit more. So, and there's great software now available. It's like one of the things like, what we utilize is there's several different types, but Grin software, and it actually allows you to reach out. That kind of feeds the type of, influencers that you're trying to target to you. You can kind of reach out to them. It actually handles the 1099s, which is great because from an accounting standpoint, having to do that with a lot of influencers is a nightmare, for your accounting department. So it handles a lot of those types of things for you, and all, and optimizes those communications so you can kind of really reach out to a whole number of them. So really the trend that I've seen that we typically recommend is more of a micro influencer type approach to what you're doing. And again, it all gets down to what kind of product you have, what kind of price point your product's at. If you're selling $500 jackets, I mean, it's going to be hard to just send out a jacket to, to 5,000 people, you're going to lose a lot. So how do you, but if you got a product that's a $10 product, you can get a lot of product out and seed a lot of product out there with micro influencers. So it's just like there's not a perfect, there's not a perfect way. It kind of really depends on what kind of product you have and the strategy behind what you're trying to do. But Grin is one of the software programs that is available that allows what used to take several people to try to do an influencer program. It allows, again, an individual to be able to manage that through the software.
But what's that called, Neil?
It's Grin, Grin.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a software for everything in there, Neil.
Yeah, there really is. And that was a game changer, being able to have the ability to, to get your product out to a whole lot of people. I mean, again, before some of the software came out, it was just so labor intensive. You had to have a lot of people, working on on the brand to be able to try to manage anything that was influencer related.
So let's go a little bit deeper of what you were mentioning earlier. So how can a small emerging challenger brand work with an organization like yours, not only to help with the branding and making sure that we're staking out our place in a given market, but you also talked about the plugins and the various services. So how do you guys also help not only drive the demand, but facilitate the fulfillment? Because so many small emerging brands, we're going to touch on this a little deeper later, but they think that their only choice is either do it all yourself. And, kind of, we hear stories of, well, my spare bedroom is full of t-shirts and twice a week I go to the post office. Or we hear people that feel trapped that Amazon's the only choice. So if you can talk a little bit about how you guys help people line up the railroad cars of creating demand, creating their units, and then, oh, by the way, we can also help you facilitate fulfillment through, let's say, Shopify.
Yeah, I think it's I've had a few different founders of some e-com companies that were started 5+ years ago, and when they come into our office, it's kind of like, wow, I wish I would have known this existed when I got started, because we could have saved a lot of money. I wouldn't have to staff up and some of those fixed costs that we have to be able to try to get people that have particular expertise. You kind of have to build that within the company, and that's traditionally how you've had to do it. Other things are outsourced, of course, and with creative services, traditional agency services on really kind of creating the brand itself a lot of times. But a lot of the day-to-day moves too quickly, and so you really need the folks on staff to be dedicated to working on the product or products and stuff. So typically a lot of companies do build that internally. Yeah, Bruce, to your point, there's a lot of, because there's a lot of problems with 3PL services, that kind of thing. There's a lot of companies I know that do their shipping directly from their office, or from their home, or whatever, because there's just a concern about what the consumer experience is going to be like. And if you don't have a good partner there, and you have little particulars of how the product's placed in the package, what goes in it, making sure the right things are in it. Make sure that, even, know some brands that, they'll even handwrite a note or something to give it a little bit more personalization. And those things are really cool. But they take time, and those are things that, really trying to kind of control that. You have to do that from your own facility or your own home in certain cases. And you got to look at, well, there's a certain point you want to scale your business, and, how are you going to do that with that same, same ability to do that and have that same personal touch, but you're going to have to eventually really have either scale it up yourself, and you're on your fulfillment, or hire a 3PL service to do that. So it's just, but our group can really consult on a lot of those types of things, and obviously everything as it relates to to promoting the brand and managing the Shopify website, building that out. All of those things are stuff that we do, services that we provide clients.
Great.
Awesome. That's great. So Bruce touched on this a little bit, but a lot of small emerging brands think that, Amazon is the only way, to a D2C play. So talk to us a little bit about Amazon and what your thoughts about that, and how Amazon fits into a, go-to-market strategy for a brand, going to D2C.
Yeah, I think, Amazon's, you're going to have to be on Amazon typically. I think it's like in how you want to, especially as a new product coming into the market, because again, Amazon's really a top bottom of the funnel, top platform to where people are ready to purchase. So if they're going to trial your product, it's an easier place for them to trial because of the trust that's there. They're already shopping, they're already looking to buy. But we also know that, they take they take a cut. They take a pretty nice cut. There is, and that's probably just going to keep getting
Bigger.
a bigger and bigger cut. I mean, we know we've seen this and over the years with brick and mortar, right? So that's going to happen now. So you have to, and so I think it's it is a place where even when you're promoting your product, you're gonna, if you're in, like you say, if you have Amazon, it's just going to open the gate to purchase more than someone that's going to that goes to your own website. There's more comfort level that's there typically. There's some younger, if you're dealing with a younger audience, it's young millennials, Gen Zers, they're a little bit more comfortable purchasing on D2C, if you do have a target audience that's that of that age group, they don't mind buying off of TikTok, directly in TikTok or in Meta. But I think that overall, I mean, I think Amazon's there. I just think you got to figure out, like I said, how what are you going to be? Are you going to be a D2C brand? And strategically, is that what you're trying to do? Well, utilize your Amazon, to really trial your product to get people there. Now, then how are you going to move them over to your platform? The biggest thing you lose is the biggest gain of having your own, e-com business is that you own your customer, right? You get the CRM and you own them and you can market to them and in the future. And of course, you don't have that with the retailers. So Amazon does. And so I think it's just, if you're going to be an Amazon brand, I mean, I tell you, you're still going to have to do the work. I mean, it makes it easier to sell on Amazon, but you're going to get some organic sales, but what you're doing offline is still going to drive and move the needle on Amazon. So you're just going to be, you're going to be promoting it and there's going to be purchasing it in Amazon.
Yeah,
absolutely. So Neil, you touched on this earlier. So let's say one of your clients has started D2C. You guys have done a bang up job. They've gone over onto Amazon. They're doing okay there. And now they're sitting in your offices and they say, we think we're ready to start trying to go to traditional brick and mortar retail. In the years of experience of you and your staff, either professionally or just things you've seen as you observe various categories that your clients are in, what are the signals that you look for in your brands to say, you know what? Of the 4 things that we really see that matter, you guys are cooking on 2 of them, but 2 of them are still a little wobbly. So I wouldn't recommend you do that because, as Tracy and I talk about all the time with other guests and especially with brands we work on, once you go brick and mortar, you have to be committed to creating demand, your fulfillment expectations. That bar gets raised way up higher. There's trade spending, there's velocity hurdles, meaning the rate of sale per, people measure it different ways, but usually pieces or dollars per store per week. So when you get in there in those meetings, it's like, okay, folks, this is what I'm seeing. What are those signals?
Yeah, I think that, to your point, Bruce, I mean, we've all heard, you guys have too, of a lot of, products and stuff that come, brands and stuff, they feel like they made it, they go into brick and mortar and then, they've got to really build up their inventory, the production, and then the next thing their products are, or being sent back or they get kicked out and they're stuck with large inventories and, it can break their business. And if they're not well capitalized, and I think you're seeing more of that. I've seen and heard of so many, Walmart stories where, Walmart likes, will take in a lot of new emerging brands, but, to scale up to meet expectations for Walmart, just from a production standpoint is a big capital expenditure. And then they throw you out 6 months later. And what are you going to do with all that inventory? So, yeah, I think it's there's a number of factors. I think now, I think it's really like, if that's your goal and, I think what's exciting is there used to be, with D2C and, the biggest threat to Amazon is kind of D2C, I mean, I don't see anybody competing with Amazon, it's just a matter of like, Shopify, I think, with more emerging brands and selling direct and that kind of thing, and boutique brands that are coming into the market and numbers and that kind of thing is going to be, definitely have, some effect on Amazon, longer term. But I think it's, the thing is typically, I mean, if you feel like your products are right for a particular brick and mortar, I think identifying like, okay, we really fit this, retailer, and who their consumer is. Our price point, our brand image, all of those things fit there. And so I think that, for instance, you think your product really would go well with Target, where it really kind of fits philosophically with Target, customer base, those types of things and all that. Well, you need to be in Target.com, and first, and you really need to go there. And because, a lot of time these days, they're going to reach out to you if you're having success. And, it's not so much of really trying to get the buyer. You're going to get the buyer's attention by having success on their e-commerce platform. So I think if that's the case, then, you really got to make a dedicated effort to building your business online with Target. And so if that's your strategy, so when you're looking at, advertising off platform, that kind of thing, you might want to really look at, maybe we don't want to be in Amazon. Maybe we want to drive business into Target, because our long-term strategy is to be in brick and mortar and be with Target. So I think those are kind of considerations you got to think about, because it's, more and more that's what they're kind of looking at. It's like, you got to be successful, and they're going to be looking at what you're doing currently on, with their e-com, those are things that, but if you get to a point of maturity to where you feel like you do that and you're well capitalized and, you can afford to go into retail at that point, you're going to have an ad budget that's going to support that as well to drive more volume. I think all of those things have to be considered. And, if you're a startup independent company and you're just basically using dollars that are friends and family, and you're not partnered with financially with someone that can help you scale, then I think that would, I think it would be I wouldn't advise a client to go retail at that point until they have that kind of, relationship.
Right. So thank you. So folks, just to summarize, longtime listeners of the show, Neil just hammered home a few points we've had made before. As Tracy likes to say, play small ball first. So if you go into a retailer, getting 4,000 Walmarts sounds really great until you start calculating the cash outlay to build and fulfill that order and then wait to get paid. And then if it doesn't work, you're introduced to the horror show of markdowns and returns.
Yes.
Another thing, Neil echoed what the buyers that we've had on the show have said. Make sure that your product is a demographic match to the shopper base of that retailer. Tracy and I hear all the time, well, so-and-so is going to, they'll give me a meeting. Well, buyers' jobs is to take meetings, right? Just because they're taking a meeting doesn't mean they're in love with you and want to get married. It means that they're going to have a meeting. But if you're a high-end skin cream, which is the example we use a lot, that costs a lot per ounce, probably being in the dollar class of trade it's a disaster that will happen. It just might not happen right now. So there's lots that goes into this. So it's good to hear you echo those same points, Neil. So thank you. Tracy.
Yeah. So Neil, give us an example of a brand that you've worked with that, got it right. I guess what I would say is, they checked all the boxes right out of the gate and were successful. So give us an example of a brand that's done it right.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of them. And of course, I mean, I guess close to my interest or what my need is I think, I like to use the example of Dollar Shave Club. It's you're looking at something in my mind is kind of a little bit more of a commodity, buying razors and, shaving stuff. I'm horrible. Like every time I go to the store, I forget to buy razors all the time. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, but I'm not going to go to the store to buy a razor. So I think they were one of the companies that kind of, really came out, as a subscription type model. It's like, hey, you use this, you just don't remember. We're going to send these to you on an ongoing basis, so you don't have to try to remember. to buy razors and shaving. So I think that those are, that was one of the brands, and I think a lot of them that kind of really looked at some stuff that's kind of more of a, they looked at it like, hey, this is kind of a commodity business, but we're offering something through a subscription that really makes a difference and makes it convenient for the customer. And I think those are that's one of the brands I think personally that was, early on that kind of really figured that out. It's like, hey, we got something that's not really that unique here, other than we can actually send it to you on a regular basis with your credit card, and you don't have to worry about it. And then, it's just going to show up at your doorstep. So I'd sit there and say that there's a lot of them that are like that, and a lot of other categories that really kind of leaned in on that subscription model to really be successful with brands that aren't necessarily, have any kind of uniqueness to them, other than it's like something that just makes it easier for the consumer and the shopping experience.
Yeah.
So Neil, on the flip side, without necessarily maybe naming the brand, give an example of an action a brand took where it was like, oh boy, this is not going to go well. Aside from the fact that they chose not to work with your agency because you would have never let that happen.
Well, I won't use any specific ones, but being in my business, you see a lot of them. So, but getting back to the point earlier, the biggest mistake, the mistakes that I've seen is trying to scale too quickly. Mm-hmm. It's that trying to go straight into brick and mortar before you're ready, before you're well capitalized, before you really understand your customer base, just so many unknowns. And Bruce, this being brand manager and your past life, and you come out of the gates with a brand, and you want your positioning to be right. You do everything to have a brand positioned correctly. You just, like I said, you spend a lot of money on research and things to make sure that you get it right, but I'll be honest, we all get it wrong sometimes, and we don't know until we're at the marketplace with our product of really seeing. And and the problem is, if you go too aggressive too early, you can't pivot. And so some of those things, like with digital, what is really great is, I'll tell clients to say, listen, we don't have to spend so much money on up front, on making sure that we got it right, because we're going to test the waters here, and we're going to learn, and we're going to optimize, and we're going to change our messaging, hone in our messaging, and really tighten up our positioning as we're getting the feedback from our customers real time. So I think it's just, you got to have that soft launch type mentality these days. I think when you're looking at when you're looking at consumer and anything, it's whether it's you're going to be in brick and mortar, or you're going to be a D2C brand, or you're going to be whatever. I think these days it's just, you got to have that period of being able to learn more post launch, and we have the ability to do that. You don't have to perfectly get it right the first time out there, unless you just come out way too aggressive, and that can backfire on you. So I think I think there's a lot of them, but I think scaling up too quickly is just, and a lot of times that's because of stakeholders. It might be, shareholders, the expectations, and sometimes, I see more and more just ridiculous numbers being put out there, this just for the sake of putting them out there, and then also management and CEOs agreeing to that because that's what they signed up for, I guess. And
it's a real leadership test, is what you're saying, because you have to have the experience or self-awareness that scaling too fast and being wrong could be fatal. And
absolutely.
then you have to manage your investor base to tell them, guys, we're not going to be in all Walmarts at the top of the product ranking report at the end of the first 6 weeks. We're just not. And then also managing the expectation of your team, and then how fast you scale your own organization. How many times do you see the overhead get way too big compared to the revenues coming in?
I've got plenty of those stories. Yeah, it's scale too fast. You got a lot of problems, but I think that's where those expectations are, and sometimes you can't control some of those. It's coming from pretty far above, but I think more and more, I mean, that's I see more wasted money, more just overall just mistakes with brands and all of that, just because of trying to get too greedy too fast. And it
Yeesh.
takes a little time to build a brand, and when there's the right time to scale, and that's usually not coming right out of the gate.
Yeah. Good point. And I love the point that you made about test and learn. You don't have to get it right perfectly right out of the gate. I love that. So tell us, Neil, who's had the greatest influence on your career?
It's a good question. There's been a lot of people. I've learned a whole lot, from a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, and people that greatly admire. I think I had to get back and really look at, probably the thing that's probably pushed me more, I think, from a business perspective, and overall of just being and doing what I do, and is really an old buddy of mine. His name's Keith Pickett, and Keith Pickett's we've known each other since third grade. We do some investing together. We have some small companies together, and it's just, we push each other. I think it's like, it's always been that way. We love business. We've made bad investments and decisions, like all of us have. We made some good ones too, but I think overall it's we complement each other really well. I'm a marketer, he's finance, he's a genius with numbers, and I think working together, it's always great to be able to work on anything with them, and having the ability just to go for it in certain cases, and just because you want to do it, and not because of the money, just because we generally enjoy business, and so anyway, I'd like I said, probably the first compliment I've ever given him, publicly.
What are friends for?
Yeah, that's right. You're right. So yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it would probably be him. I think on the daily basis, like, more than learning, is that we push each other, and we always have, and really he's made business enjoyable for me, and so yeah, it's and we know each other since third grade. So yeah.
I love that. That's
All
awesome.
right. Well, we're moving into the final things here, Neil. So again, thanks for your time. But we try to end with a really fun question, and we ask our guests who's their favorite football team, band, or brand, and why do they like it? And I believe as a Texan, you picked football, which absolutely shocks us.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us who you pull for and why?
Well, I would have to say that, I can't rightfully include the Dallas Cowboys right now. I grew up, in the Dallas area. So growing up and with the Dallas Cowboys made, anybody back in that era, a football lover. And of course, we love that here in Texas, and that kind of thing. But it's hard really to kind of, I think, from a overall look at one team now, that really, in football, especially in college football too, with NIL and things like that, makes it a lot different to really kind of follow a team, in a particular, unless you got a particular alumni that you're attached to. But yeah, it's I'm thinking about it, and I probably have to say, maybe a rock band. So it would be a better analogy. So yeah, I grew up with and I think it was like one of my first, real looks at it as a band that I grew up with, that it was called New Order when I was growing up in the 80s. And I think what I liked about the band so much was it wasn't just their music, it's the way they marketed themselves. And, they put on this, really each album that came out was truly an art piece, and it was kind of like they didn't treat it like they're over advertising. It was kind of like they didn't even put the name of the band or even the album name on the cover. They wanted you to be able to figure out it's them. And if you did, you're part of a kind of a cool club, that knew
Love
what you
that.
were buying. This is something that's just great. And I thought some of the marketing, I think that they did, and was really kind of very progressive, and how they handled it and what they did. And I think probably that was my first really, I think, taste of what I was going to be doing for a living, because I really kind of admired their strategy of what they were doing by going beyond just playing music, but really looking at ways of building an audience and stuff that was really a committed, audience that, felt like that they were special because they had to go to the record store and pick out what albums and stuff they had. And, you're part of a secret club there. And I thought it was pretty genius that, how they market themselves. So that was my really first take of that. And like I said, it hard for me to pick a football team right now. So
Gotcha.
Well, way back, Roger Staubach brought much sadness to me as a rooting for the opposing teams, but the guy was a winner. And it is amazing, the old school going to the record stores and how iconic some of the album covers that I have down in my collection. You still see them and you don't even know. You don't even have to know. You just know what it is. And I think that probably gets a little lost when you can just go download something. And I don't know. But anyway, Neil, thank you so much for your time. So how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, the easiest way to get in touch with me is just through my email, and then that's Foster, Foster at agencyhabitat.com.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time. Tracy, take us into the big finish.
Absolutely. Well, Neil, thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome. It was great insight for small emerging brand audience. And we just encourage you to follow us on Apple, also on Spotify, and on our LinkedIn page, and look for this episode soon. So thank you again for joining us, Neil. We appreciate it.
Great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Thanks to both of you. So, yeah.
Good luck out there, folks.
Yep.
Yep. Good luck.